right, good morning out there. This is K4VWD, CQ, the old friends net. This net meets 3 times a week, 6:30 on Sunday evenings on this same frequency, and on Thursday mornings at 9 o'clock and Tuesday mornings at 9 o'clock. And everybody that can generate an AM signal is welcome. So CQ, the old friends net. I need to tell you that it's 77 degrees and the sun's shining here. But we got a lunch today at the Golden Corral in Spartanburg, and I hope most people can make it. I'm using my spare rig this morning, and I'll tell you why the next time around. And John, K1VVC, came by yesterday, and the knob, the set screw's in there, and I didn't know it because I didn't have the right size screwdriver. John came around yesterday with the right size screwdriver, and the set screw's in there. So thank goodness for that. And I would like audio reports, and tell me if you're hearing any hum or anything's wrong or too much modulation or whatever, because I'm not real familiar with this rig. I haven't used it for a while. So with that, I will stand by for calls, and those that want to participate in this net, please call me now.
N4LQ.
K4GDN.
W4VRO.
W4MEC is here, and Lee, I hope you heard George, K4GDN after Steve.
Well, I hope the reason we are slight this morning is that everybody's headed to lunch. So yes, I did hear George. Very, very light, but I could tell it was George. So I got LQ, GDN, VRO, and MEC. So we got a light group today. Do we have anybody else? Are there any fills? Don't hear any. All right. Well, I may need some help. The rig that I normally use is not working, and I'm going to tell you why. I was playing with this old AF68 Junker, trying to figure out why, and then talking to Charlie, had to be on the AM side in order to measure the resistance in the modulation transformer. And I couldn't get it to move very much, so I went to my rig that I normally do, and I was going to check it. So I started checking it, and the thing kind of froze up and will not modulate now. So I need some help in figuring out what to do with that switch. It's the AM CW switch on the AF68, top left-hand corner. So I don't know whether I can do that or not, so I may need some help. And I look forward to seeing those that can make it for lunch today. But we just got 5 in here this morning. So here's the sequence: LQ to GDN to VRO to MEC. And one more standby. Is there anybody else? Please call me now. Don't hear anybody. So, Steve, go ahead and start us off. N4LQ in the group, K4VWD.
K4VWD, N4LQ. Well, good morning, all 4 people, or 3 people, other than myself. And good morning, George and Charlie and Lee. And man, that's a small crowd. I guess it's the luncheon's part of it. I heard on the other net, Dave's coming, and I don't know who else. But I plan on being there, and I'm riding with Gary K3OS, and he's probably on the road toward my house right now. It takes about an hour for him to get here from Hickory. So you sound fine. I don't hear anything wrong with that transmitter, Lee. So I don't know if you can get it to the old friend luncheon. I'd be glad to either fix it there, which probably ain't going to happen, but I can bring it home and take care of it. Whatever you want to do. There's another guy on in Lenore that I talk to all the time on another net. He's got one. I'm going to look at it, I guess. He can't get any modulation out of it. So hopefully it's something simple. But I've gotten kind of familiar with this particular transmitter. I don't even need to look at the schematic most of the time. Anyway, that's what I'm running. AF68, driving the AL1200, and I'm sitting here listening on the PMR8 receiver, which sounds very good. Got a new tube for it. I need to take it apart and put it in there. It's for the AVC rectifier tube. AVC isn't quite up to snuff, and when that happens, you have to ride the RF gain a little bit to keep it from distorting. But that's no problem. Nice, quiet receiver. On we go, George. How's things in Myrtle? K4GDN, N4LQ.
N4LQ in the group, K4GDN. Well, it's warming up down here. I think we're supposed to get some rain tomorrow, but it's getting hot. Heat index will be over 100 today. And it was about that way yesterday also. So that's what it is here in the third world. And Lee, you're sounding good. Looks like the modulation is right out close to 100%. So I don't have any problem copying you at all here this morning. And I'm hearing everybody fairly well. Ray was a little weak, but that's not too terribly unusual. Hope I'm getting out there to everybody. I'm on the Viking Ranger 2, going to the Butternut Vertical. And I'm receiving on the National SRO 51. So with that, I'll pass it on to you, Ray. W4VRO in the group, K4GDN.
Go ahead, Ray.
Thank you, Lee. K4VWD and the net, W4VRO. Can barely tell you're in there, George, but cannot copy at all. Good morning, Lee, to you and Steve, and you, George, if you're copying, and to you, Charlie. I think this is the shortest check-in list I have seen on this net in the years I've been checking in, but that's okay. It's a good group, and I think the short list is due to people being on their way to the luncheon. I've heard a lot of people over the last couple of nets say they were attending, so I think there'll be a good crowd. Lee, I can't help you with your transmitter problem. I'm not familiar with that series of equipment. I had one transmitter and one receiver years ago and never did anything with it, and gave the transmitter to Earl, and can't remember Earl's call right now, and gave the receiver to, again, I can't remember, a guy in Tennessee who used to check into the net all the time. But you've come to the right place. I mean, Steve and Charlie have got the ready knowledge, and since it happened the way it did, I don't think it's going to be something fairly simple. Over to you, Charlie, W4MEC, this is W4VR.
I'll help the numbers, W4UOC.
Hey, Tom. Go ahead.
SW4 MEC. Let's see, that'd be W4VRO. It's W4 MEC, and I'm putting W4 UOC down after me. And you can turn that back over to Lee when you're done. Good morning, everybody. It's 70. I wrote it down. 72 degrees here, and the humidity's down, so it actually feels a little cool. And we got everything ready to go on the trip to the lunch there. And what am I bringing? I'm bringing my R13 for Buddy. I finally have succumbed to that. I've got so many other things going on, and I think it's got a really screwy problem in it that I would probably spend the rest of my life trying to sort out there. So he is the bona fide expert on those babies, so I'm going to let him sort it out for me. Let's see. I also have another radio there sitting there that I'm going to bring. Anyway, Lee's bringing back Lee's HRO back to him. Yeah, you probably bumped a wire in that rig, Lee, or maybe something in the mode switch acted up. But the rig you're on now sounds absolutely wonderful, so no problems with that. What else we got? You know, Steve found a link to that catalog I mentioned the other day from Columbia Electronics. I was just looking through it again, and you can actually buy, back then, apparently 1962 is what the date was on it, and you could actually buy the ANGRC-26 radio, what do they call it, a mobile self-contained radio teletype voice CW set, 400 watts, 2 to 18 megahertz, R38 URRs, including the power plant and the truck. The whole thing, the whole enchilada there that you could have bought. Now there's a mobile rig, put your own generator behind it, and it says purchase price upon request, so no telling what it went for, but you could get the teletype less version, the SCR 399, and uses 342 receivers, 1.5 to 18 megacycles, Jerk 26, and also price upon request. So it would be very interesting to see what that entire setup would have cost back in 1962 military surplus. W4UOC in the group, W4MEC.
W4MEC, W4UOC. I'm sorry I wasn't here for the original sign-in list, but I heard complaints that, or not complaints, but comments that the group was kind of small. I was up on 3725 and relaxing here. We've, for those of you that don't know, we sold our house in Sandy Springs. We moved to our log cabin for 6 months. We found a house that we purchased here. We're at Lake Arrowhead near Waleska, Georgia. And I apologize, I'm not using a vintage radio. I've sort of committed to my wife that this lower terrace level, which is a much nicer place than I've ever had a hemp shack, but I'm not going to get it too cluttered up, so I'm cheating. I'm using a Flex 6400M, but I'll have something vintage. I'm using a 30L1 with it. I hope it sounds okay. But I signed off 3725, and I saw on the display there was that you all were down here, and it had been a while since I'd checked in. But I'm copying everybody quite well. My antenna is now I'm in a restricted neighborhood. You know how that goes. But I'm using a 10 through 80 meter half-wave, end-fed half-wave antenna, which I've never had any experience with anything like this. And I strung it up in the woods. We live on I guess you'd say it's classified as a wetland in the back of this property. But fortunately, and it is in my lot, but I can't, I'm not permitted to make any changes. I can't cut anything in there. I can't cut the grass. It's some special grass. So I have all sorts of restrictions, but none to stretch out 100-foot long wire antenna across the stream and attach it to a tree on the other end of our lot. Fortunately, it's long enough to do that. But we're getting adjusted to living here. We still have our cabin. We have a log cabin at Ellijay on the Coosawattee River, but it wasn't big enough for full-time living, so we made the decision to come here. Jury's still a little bit out on the community. Everybody seems to love it here. We're comfortable here. I'm not so sure. If you want anything, you got to drive 20 minutes. I mean, the closest grocery store is 20 minutes away. Fortunately, this little town of Waleska is kind of an interesting place. It has a college. It's called Reinhardt University. It's been here since 1864, I think, or something like that. And I'm learning my way around the community. The main street of Waleska, from the four-way intersection to the last business, has got to be less than really a city block, maybe a city block and a half. We've learned about Dollar General. Fortunately, Waleska has a liquor store and a gas station, so what more do you need? Over to you, Lee. This is W4UOC. It's great to hear you again.
Okay, Tom, very good. This is K4VWD. Do we have anybody else that would like to join us? Please call me now. Don't hear anybody. Well, Tom, this is K4VWD. Tom, you're sounding good. You're 20 over here in Greenville with your at your new location, and I sure hope y'all enjoy it and learn how to get around without any trouble. And I'm telling you, you're really sounding good. You're 20 over here in Greenville. And let's see. Thank you for everybody on the audio report. I'm glad this thing sounds all right. It looks okay on my Heathkit monitor, and it's blinking at me when I talk, whereas this other radio won't. And Steve, I appreciate your offer to look at this, and I will bring the radio today. The problem is with me is that switch on the AF68 for the AM-CW is kind of small, and with my shaking hands, I don't think I can handle it. But even worse, it's behind the front panel, and behind it is the box for the oscillator. So, it may not be too easy to fix. So anyway. Let's see if we got anything else. I don't have anything else right this minute. So, I don't know. I was playing with that switch, and the audio just went away. So there's something in that switch that's causing it. I guess it's possible it could be something else. But the audio went away when I was trying to make that switch work, and it just quit. So I think the problem's in that switch. And let's see, what else? That's it. So, Steve, go ahead. N4LQ in the group. K4VWD.
K4VWD, N4LQ. Yeah, that's no problem. Just bring it along, and I'll bring it home here, throw it on the bench and get her fixed, and then we'll take it from there, see what happens. I don't plan on being down there until the next meeting, but you never know. Somebody else may be coming your way or something. We can get it transported back to Greenville. Well, went to the Shelby Ham Fest, brought home a Gonset G63. And if you never saw a G63, it's a tabletop ham band only receiver from the early 60s, maybe 61 or 60, somewhere in that area. It's got a drum that rotates with the bands on it, and sort of like a Collins. It actually has a product detector for sideband, which was probably one of the first ones back in those days. Interestingly, the product detector, when you switch to sideband, it does not have AVC. So when you don't have AVC, that means you have to reduce the RF gain anyway. So what good does the product detector? I don't know, maybe it's less distortion or something. But the way this works, when you switch to sideband, the volume control, and it doesn't have an RF gain control on it, at least on the front panel, but the volume control becomes the RF gain control. So it's a double pot tandem. And I looked at the schematic and I said, man, this is really weird. Sort of reminds me of how the BC312, BC342 is. It's a double purpose pot, becomes RF gain instead of volume. So that works okay. I got it working, and it's got an S meter, but of course the S meter doesn't function when you're in sideband mode. AM sounds pretty good. It's got a Q multiplier, which gives it a little bit of some sharpness. And interestingly enough, the IF frequency is 262 kCs with a Q multiplier. How we wish the PMRs had that in it. But still, the skirts are pretty broad. Even though there is a sharp peak, you can still hear stuff off to the side. And then I was working on the TMC GPR 90 here. Now that's really an interesting radio. It's got a 455 kC IF, and then it's got a 17 kC IF, and that is of course down in the audio range, and it's got an audio filter 3 kCs wide, and it pipes the audio out of that, and and after that it's detected, of course, but that's kind of unusual, and I was having trouble tracing the RF through there, so I got my malachite out, which is able to receive down below, well, it goes down to 10 kCs, so I was easily able to pick up 17 kCs with that and receive it on the malachite, which nice little piece of test gear. And welcome to Tom, glad you're here, and congratulations on the InFed half-wave antenna. That's a proven winner, and I'm glad you obviously it's doing a good job for you. So I believe I'm going to have to make this my last go around. I'll be listening, but got a few things I got to do. Gary will be here before long, and we'll probably be yakking it up here before we hit the road. So mark me off on the exchange there, and George, over to you, and you're sounding good this morning. K4GDN to take it, N4LQ.
N4LQ in the group, K4GDN. And I didn't copy Tom. That last station didn't get a call sign on it either. And Ray, I got most of yours and most of Charlie's, but Sam's a little weak to these corners. It seems as the antenna dries out, the loading changes a little bit. as I said, I'm on the butternut vertical this morning. That may be part of the problem with the receiving. I don't know, but it seems to be working pretty good as far as transport. I'm going to say 73 on this one. I'm not going to be able to get to the lunch today. It's a little bit of a long ride there, but hopefully in the future I'll be able to get there. And Charlie, if you happen to be okay, look forward to seeing you towards this time next week, or so, towards the end of the week, and I'll get that radio and any tunes from you. So with that, I'm going to say 73, but I'm going to listen to the end. So Ray, coming to you, W4VRO in the group, K4GDN.
K4GDN in the net. This is W4VRO. Okay, George, copied a little bit of that one. So very good. Didn't get it all, but right at the end, I could copy you 100%. Tom, good morning to you. Good to hear you, and I'm glad you called in with us. When I turned on the gear here in the shack this morning, a little before net time, the receiver was on 3725. It often is. If I'm doing some work here in the office in the shack, I listen to the 3725 net in the mornings fairly often, but didn't hear anyone this morning, so I think maybe your group ended a little earlier than usual, maybe. And Tom, I don't think you got this information from us this morning. Just in case you didn't, Steve is in Shelby, North Carolina. George is in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm southeast of Noonan, Georgia, directly south of you. Charlie is near Hendersonville, North Carolina. And don't worry about your antenna situation. As Steve said, it's working great. You're really booming in here and sounding good. Lee, before I forget it, there's a tiny bit of hum on your signal, I think. It was very strong, and otherwise it's working good. So your standby rig is doing its job. So I don't see any other notes here. Steve, if you're still listening, 17 KC second IF on that receiver is interesting. And I was looking at the specifications on a new Ricebox transceiver and was surprised to see that the second IF was 12 KCs. And so I guess they're using audio filters in that IF, and I guess that's why they went to such a low frequency. But, you know, the old Helicopters receivers used a 50 KC second IF and a whole lot of tune stages, and Hamlin used the 60 KC IF second and a whole lot of tune stages, and they both got excellent selectivity report approaching that of mechanical filters. Well, I'm talking too long here, but let me pass it on to Charlie. And Tom, really good to hear you again. I hope you'll check in with us often. My name is Ray, and I'm located about 50 miles, almost due south of it. W4VRO.
Real good, Ray, W4VRO and the group W4MEC. 17 KC and 12 KC. Huh. What do the transformers look like? I was wondering if the modern rig, Ray, that you're talking about was 12 KC was not really an IF, but a sampling rig that they use or something. But maybe it is an actual coil. Maybe they've come up with something new. I know in my RAK receiver that goes down to 15 kilohertz, the inductors in there, well, if you look at your standard RF choke, it's pi wound RF choke in a low stage in a transmitter or in a receiver, and put it on steroids, that's about what the RF coils look like in the RAK. Giant 1, 2, and 3, I think, section pi wound, built on an aluminum frame and dipped in wax. The coil is entirely sealed up in wax, top to bottom. The actual coils themselves, not the whole form. You can open a can up that they're in, and the cans are about as They're not as big as a coffee can. I take it back. They're about maybe 2/3 the size of a normal 1-pound coffee can. And these coils set down inside of those things, down to 15 kilohertz. So the high end is 650, I think, kilohertz. So I tell you, I love these old catalogs like this because you get a lot of information about stuff. This one includes a lot of technical information about what you're buying. I did find the PE95 generator set, which is what is in the trailer of the truck generator set trailer combination. They want $650 for it, and they said they got a 4-cylinder Willys Jeep 35-horse Jeep engines driving a 10-kilowatt alternator, and I bet you that baby will run all day long there and not bog down on you. So pretty neat. Too bad you can't get you out the old time machine there. I did find I actually saw an MAW1 in here. I've never seen one of those advertised anywhere, and it's a purchase on request. And they call it a 10-channel, which is right. Backpack radio portable. And I tell you what, the Korean War soldiers were a lot tougher radio men than today because that thing was a hoss. I think it probably acts as a little back armor too, from as thick as it was. So anyway, just looking through here. But I've got one thing I've never found out what it is. I've never seen a picture of it. It's not in this book. It's part of something bigger, and it's a VLF receiver. And it's a little box. It's probably about 10 by 12 by 8. Weighs a ton. It's got some cannon plugs on the side. It does have a tuning dial and a knob on the front with a little tiny window. The window is probably maybe 3/4 of an inch tall and an inch wide. And it is a VLF type receiver for something, but not a clue what it went to, and I can find no information on it. And I was hoping it would be in here, but it's not. So I did find one thing on the back cover. I actually have one of these, a Novastar radio, aircraft radio made by Aero Ear. And I actually wrote an article about it in Electric Radio a couple of years ago, fixing the tuning cap. It's got a vernier dial, similar tuning mechanism, and I fixed the darn thing, and they actually published my fix on how to get those style of vernier drives to work again. And I paid for it $10, and it's $385 in 1962. So, yeah, in 2016 it's only about $10, but anyway. All right, well, let's see. Over to Tom at least one more time. W4UOC in the group. W4, let me see.
Okay, thank you. W4VEC, W4UOC. Well, this is very interesting. I need to become more of a regular. I know you guys are here on Thursdays and on Sundays. I used to check into Sundays, but we've been so busy trying to get settled here. But real good. Well, thanks for the report on the NFED. You know, I've been on the air since 1957, 58, and I've always put up, pretty much tuned antennas and go to all the trouble to measure them and cut them and get them up and adjust them and all that kind of stuff. Here to kind of get by the HOA, or this is a POA. I always wondered what's the difference between HOA homeowners and POA property owners. Well, the builders own a lot of lots, and then they eventually build homes on them. But they seem to have, because they have more lots and more space that they control, they have a lot of influence on what happens around here. And one of the things when I read the covenants before we bought this house is no outside antennas, period, the end, no wires. That's what they said. Well, when we moved here, I used to be, when I retired from DuPont, I started working, volunteering with the fire department in a rehab. I had a rehab truck, a fire truck, but it was all set up to provide means of pumping up the air bottles. We could make limited food on this truck, lunches for the firemen and the crews, or people that had to get out of their houses. We had clothes in it. If they came out in their nightgown, we could give them a sweatsuit. But anyway, I did that. And then I got involved with the police department. For 11 years, I was a community police officer in Sandy Springs. We were called cops, citizens on patrol. But that took a lot of time, so I didn't get on the air very much. But gosh, some of the equipment you all have been discussing here brings me back. I was an Army Signal Corps officer from Fort Gordon, Georgia, and the Redstone Arsenal. And I remember when we do property book stuff, I saw equipment that goes back to probably the Korean War, and nothing so far back as the WW2. But when I was in college at our armory at Iowa State University, we had one of those huts that goes back on the back of a deuce and a half, and we pulled it. It had a generator you could pull around. We finally put it inside the armory, and when I was in college, that was my ham station. Our colonel, professor of military tactics, whatever, he gave me a key to the hut, or combination. I think it was a key, and so he said, you can use it whenever you want. It was in the armory, and the antenna was on was a dipole on top of the armory, and that was my ham station for the I'm going to have to admit, 5 years that I was at Iowa State. Lee, I'm curious as what is, they called it your auxiliary rig. I wonder what it is. I know about the LMAX. I used to have LMAX, and I enjoyed them very much. I've really thinned down now. I sold a lot of stuff before we moved, gave away a lot of stuff before we moved. I moved two things, though. I have a KWM-1 with the matching power supply, the matching speaker, phone patch, watt meter combination, and I do have it set up here because it's not terribly big. I have a couple pieces of equipment that I'd like to give, trade, whatever. I'd trade for something. I have a Central Electronics 20A and the matching VFO, which is really an old military command set that's in a Central Electronics case. I really don't have any need for that anymore, and I don't have room to put all that stuff up. I'm not gonna move the KWM-1 for some reason. I'm very attached to it. I bought it from a guy. I had it for years. I ended up. Some of you remember Marty Reynolds. I sold it to Marty Reynolds. I helped settle his estate, and his wife said, "Is there anything that you want?" And I said, "Well, the only thing would maybe be to get the KWM-1 back. I'd be glad to give you what he paid me for it." And she said, "You could have it." And I said, "No, I'll pay what I sold it, or I'll pay you what I sold it to him for." So I've kept it. Again, it's one of these memory things. I look around the shack that since I've opened up now, and I see things that remind me of people. And the KW-1, of course, reminds me of many, many years and pleasurable acquaintance with Marty Reynolds that some of you know. So, Lee, I'm going to turn it back to you. Tell me what you're from. This is W4UOC.
Okay, Tom, very good. This is K4VWD. I still sounding good here in Greenville, and I sure am glad that you checked in. Thank you very much for being here. And my rig today is my secondary AF-68. The one that I normally run, I've got a problem with the AM CW switch. and I was playing with it, and it quit modulating. So Steve's going to look at it. I'm going to bring it to the luncheon today and let him look at it. But this one I got today is my secondary AF68, and it's an AF68A, whether that means anything or not. And I'm listening on the PMR8 receiver, and I've got a Bandit amplifier, and my carrier is about 200 watts, and I'm feeding a dipole that's almost 140 feet long. So, and fed with ladder line, going through a Tentec antenna tuner. So that's the rig here today. I noticed that on my dogwood trees here that the berries are turning red. So it's that time of year. And by the way, Charlie, my first receiver was a Hallicrafters 28. And I bought it used from Allied Radio, and I happen to have a 1963 Allied Radio catalog here. I don't know that it means anything, but at least I got one. Let me take a quick standby. As we get ready to close down, is there anybody that wants to join us? If so, please call me now. Don't hear anybody. So, Tom, I hope somebody will pick up on those rigs that you want to get rid of, and I hope that works out fine for you. And you're sure sounding good from your new location. So, we'll start it around again, and Steve is on the road coming to our lunch today. So, George, if you're copying, go ahead. If not, Ray, you may have to prompt him, or Charlie. K4GDN and the group, K4VWD.
No, he checked out the other go-around there, Lee.
Okay, so if George checked out, then go ahead, Ray.
Okay, thank you, Lee. K4VWD and the group W4VRO. Very good, Tom. Very interesting stuff. And so glad you checked in with us. And I'm sure you won't have any trouble in finding a new home for that equipment that you no longer want or need. Lee, thank you very much for calling the net. And we had few check-ins, mostly because of the luncheon today, I think. But it was a good net, and I hope everyone has a good day. 73, and we'll look for all of you at the next net, including you, Tom. Check in with us every time you can. So, over to you, Charlie. W4MEC, W4VRO, clear and listening.
Okay, Ray, very good. And W4VRO in the group, W4MEC. I think Tom was building up to an explanation of how he has his wire antenna. He was setting up the story there, but then went off on talking about the fellow he got the gear from, and him sitting down the shack. But I think the punchline was missing, and I have a feeling he played up the emergency role because he brought up about being a cop and having the emergency van and all that stuff. So I wonder if that was how you got that antenna up, playing on the importance of ham radio as a emergency service there. So anyway, yeah, kind of like sitting here with bated breath waiting for the punchline and didn't come. So quit eating the bait, right? Anyway, I just, like I say, looking through here, when I left Naval Air Station Jacksonville in 1977, you would not believe the number of pieces of test equipment that are being sold in this 62 catalog that we were still using in 77. Scopes and meters, and one signal, the URM-25 signal generator was a real popular one. And it's like, that stuff was built to last, and it did. So it's just great to look back through history here. and reminisce. One of the things I do like, though, they sell Tri-X towers in this magazine, in this catalog, and in 1962, a 146-foot Tri-X tower would set you back a nice $499.95. So that was when the dollar was a lot more stable and based on $32 an ounce gold, I think. So anyway, we'll see you fellows at the lunch there, hopefully, and we'll have a good rest of the week here. And Tom, we also meet on Sunday. You got that right, but we moved the time to 6:30 because of QRM and QRN. So if you can jot down 6:30 on Sundays, maybe you can make that trip. Station signals are a lot better then. 7-3 all. We'll see you Sunday. W4UOC in the group. W4MEC. Bye-bye.
Okay. W4MEC, W4UOC. Well, you know, I'm 82 years old, and sometimes I think I want to talk about something, and then my mind shifts, and I got off some fireworks in Sandy Springs. Since we moved, I'm not involved in that anymore. But the antenna is. They made it very clear that you couldn't have antennas, but I know how I got off track. They have a group up here that's at one time was involved with the fire department because Lake Arrowhead is a mountain lake. It's fed by a stream, by springs, not a river. And they had a small fire station here and some equipment that they were going to have volunteers be involved with. Anyway, when I talked to this guy about joining that group, which sort of, after COVID, it kind of fell apart, and I detected in talking to him that he was talking like he knew about ham radio. I said, are you a ham? He said, yes. And I said, you live here? He said, yes. I said, well, the covenants say you can't have any antenna. And he basically said, don't believe everything you read. He said there are about 7 or 8 hams that live in Lake Arrowhead, the area, and they're all using a long wire or end-fed antennas. So I had been told about an end-fed. As a matter of fact, I had one, but I had never used it. But I put it up. I stretched it across the wetlands, across the coveted spring-fed creek, and put it up, and it works. I expected to be sort of marginal, but it seems to work very, very well. I'm really pleased, and I can't understand why I spent so much time cutting antennas and hanging them perfectly vertical or parallel or whatever they needed to be. And this thing was a great surprise to me, and I'm very, very happy. And basically they have in the covenant you can have one if it's approved. I've just decided to put it up. It's easier to beg forgiveness than to ask permission. But thank you guys for letting me in. This has really been nice. I've met voices that I haven't heard for quite some time, and people that I've known for many years. I'm going to try to get to be a bit more regular, and thanks for the information on increasing the time to 6:30. I maybe had been listening before because it seems to me it was quite a bit earlier. I think it was more like 5 o'clock, but I know that my friend Reed Fisher, W2CQH, is a regular, and I think Lee, you were the first person I ever got started with in this not necessarily this group, but we used to talk, and you guided me this way. So thank you. That's enough from this end. I really enjoyed it. K4VWD, thanks for the information on your station, and it's working great. I'll say 73, and thank you all for letting me in this morning. This is W4UOC, Lake Arrowhead, near Waleska, Georgia.
Okay, Todd, very good. This is K4VWD. Well, 7-3 to you. And by the way, I think I forgot to tell you that my microphone is an Astatic 10D that I'm feeding this multi-airmatic AF68 with. So I've got something unusual happening. I've got hummingbirds, and 2 of them chasing each other as they normally do. But just a few minutes ago, one sat above the other one about 18 inches, and one of them's on the feeder and the other one's on the support just above it. And both of them sitting there, and that's kind of unusual, I would think. Let's see, do we have anybody with any final comments? If so, call me now.
Lee, this is George. What was Tom's call sign? I didn't catch it.
N4QH. Just want to say hey.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for checking in. I do appreciate it. Anybody else?
A comment for George.
Okay. Well, I hope to see everybody that can make it to lunch today at the Golden Corral in Spartanburg. Looking forward to it. Thanks for checking in, everybody. I do appreciate it. It's been a good net. I'll say 7-3. God bless. I hope everybody has a safe trip today, and I look forward to talking to y'all on Sunday evening. So with that, I will close the Old Friends Net for now. This is K4VWD. So long.
K4GDN, you still here? Hey, you were asking about Tom's call. It's W4UOC, United Oscar Charlie.
I got it. Thank you very much, Steve. K4GDN.
No problem, 73, N4LQ.
Well, good morning, Lyle. If you're still listening, N4QH. Appreciate you checking in and saying hello. Good to hear you. I've got to run, but check in with us more often. N4QH, Toccoa, Georgia. W4VR, Eau Claire.
Yeah, 73, Ray. Thanks for letting me slide in. You know, Ray, just checking out your Johnson transmitter there. That rascal was over $900 when it was new in the 50s, over.
Okay, Lyle. What rig was that that you mentioned the price on?
500, the one that you're using, over.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, that was a dream rig back then, and to me, it's still a dream rig. I just have thoroughly enjoyed this Johnson 500. It's a pleasure to look at and to use. Over.
QSL, and the audio is superb audio. Okay, Ray. Good day. We'll see you later. Over.
Okay, Lyle. Thanks for the report, and good to hear you. N4QH in the group, or the group assigned. N4QH, W4VR Eau Claire.